Hello and welcome to Sim.bc, where I'm joining you with a cup of green at 10 past 1 in the bloody morning, mates. And today we're probably going to do the hardest video in this little project series, whatever you want to call it, about imagination. Because we have been talking about imagination and the workplace. We've been talking about imagination and how to further your career. So that's sort of the professional side of what you can utilize imagination for. We've also been talking about, right? We've also been talking about your spare time. What it actually means to have your free time tainted, or what you would say, influenced and inspired, so to say, of imagination. How it can help you deal with different emotions so that you don't bring them back to work, and vice versa, so that you don't bring the work with you home. We've also, quite recently, yesterday actually, been talking about some channels, some way that you can actually channel your inner or outer, for that matter, imagination, creativity, create an expression of your impression of something and deal with it to develop it and to make you feel more comfortable with creating, because in essence that is what it's going to go down to. But today is going to be, as I said, the most difficult video, because today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try and combine the two sides. So the professional side, which imagination is influencing, together with the social side that imagination and creativity also is influencing. And what does that leave us with? What is it that we're actually going to discuss? Well, that is using these two sides, influenced by imagination, to make new goals in life. Yeah, I know, it's heavy stuff, And the main reason why I say that this will be hard to express and hard to discuss is not only just because I found out quite recently, which I probably did know from before, that, just discussing and expressing imagination is very hard through just words. It's probably something that we're gonna touch on tomorrow when we do this sort of roundup of the entire thing. But also because making goals and setting goals in life is very individualistic, right? It's very up to you what you believe is the best course of action in your life, depending on the context where you are, the life that you've been living, the life you've been living and why you've been living it, the lessons you've been taught, the culture that you're born into, the nation that you are, and the place in the world, the language which you speak. There are many things to be taken into consideration when you estimate the best course of action and the goals that you were supposed to set in life. That is why, first of all, it's hard to discuss on a concrete level, and second, why we're actually not going to do that. We're not going to discuss the exact steps that you are going to take in life in order to, utilize imagination, utilize creativity, because that would be madness, now wouldn't it? Because as is explicitly stated already, it's very different from all of us, and it's very hard to express it in certain ways through different channels, for some of us more than others. You might favor one over the other in comparison to one of your mates, for instance, someone you know, someone you don't know, someone on the other side of Earth. But what we can discuss and what we can evaluate is the idea that it's important to work with these two sides that we sort of have been discussing in isolation. The only connection we've made really is don't take work with you home and don't take your home with you to work, because you will be bringing different problems over. But what we will be focusing is the idea that these two sides need to be harmonized in order for you to actually utilize your creativity in the best way. And yes, it will stem from the idea that you won't bring emotions back and forth. And why I'm saying this is because imagine, right? I mean, just imagine that you're going through something really horrible, something really traumatizing at home. You don't want to bring that to work. Now, maybe if it's truly something traumatizing, you might even take time off work. I would argue that that's probably the best course of action, because you don't want to influence work, and it's really hard to separate the two if something, as I said, truly traumatizing is happening. don't necessarily need to be something traumatizing for the argument's sake, but just something that is affecting you a lot. Now, take some time off from work and try to deal with it. Yet again, the way we've been discussing this is deal with it through imagination, through the different channels that we've made and discussed and established in yesterday's video. Try to get it out of your system so that you don't bring it back to work. Because if you do bring it back to work, you're probably going to lower your performance. No matter the amount of imagination and creativity you put in, no matter the amount of new perspectives you put in, you will still be out of balance if you go back to work with this harsh realization or this harsh situation upon you that has happened in your personal life. Simultaneously, you won't be really able to establish new goals for yourself and develop what you want to do and make new plans in your personal life if you have a really stressful situation going on at work that you can't seem to drop when you get home. I don't mean that you need to drop the ball 100%, that you need to pick it up at like 80% when you get back to work. It's not what I'm saying. It just means you shouldn't have to stress about it when you get off work. One of the few lessons I learned really early in life, I say learn, I was told really early in life, right? And that is separate your social life and your work life, because your life will be so much better for it. Yet again, 22-year-old person right here, right? I know all the kinks and in and outs of the world. No questions asked, right? I mean, it's pretty simple for someone like me who's pretty optimist, right? I know everything. Obviously, I do not. So take this with a grain of salt, but still, it's important that you keep that balance, because as I will get into, it's really going to be hard for you to try and set goals that will bolster your imagination if you have an imbalance in your life already. And this goes back to the idea that we were talking about, that you need to be sort of at a level of comfortability before you implement change. And the reason for that, right? The reason why you need to do that is because otherwise you probably just are going to be stressed. If you're not comfortable in the situation where you are, then odds are that piling on more things to do is just going to stress you out even more. You might be thinking, this will distract me, but it probably is going to make the situation that you're in even worse. No matter if it's really bad already or not even that bad. It might be quite good actually, but you're not 100% comfortable, so piling on more stuff maybe ain't going to move you in this sort of quote-unquote right direction to be even more happy, right? It's a hard discussion to take, it's a hard point to take out. So let's semi-drop that and move on. Now, the point why I'm taking this up, right, is because in order to move on, to make a new goal, you need to be comfortable in your work life, which is yet again attaining this balance that I tried to talk about. The balance between, rather your emotional balance between work and social life, your professional life and your social life. The reason why it's important yet again is because you should be able to take your creativity and your imagination a step further. Now we're finally getting into the action, the meat and potatoes of what I want to sort of aim at, right? And that is because, let's say, for instance, you've taken up a channel at home. Let's say drawing. You've taken up drawing so that you can actually express your imagination. You can express your emotion, you can deal with certain things that you can't really talk about. Not necessarily because you don't want to talk about them, it's just that it doesn't really fully get expressed when you talk about it. Because not everything can be expressed by words alone. Or at least it's really, really hard to do for many people. So therefore you start drawing. Now, let's, for argument's sake, say that you do have a balance between your work life and your social life. That ain't an issue for you. Now, in order to bolster your imagination, and in order to bolster the amount of creativity that you can produce, let's say quantify it, this is probably the wrong way of doing it, but it's yet again breaking new ground, for me at least. Let's say that you can quantify your creativity, and right now it is a 1 or 100%, however you want to see it. Now, this imagination and this creativity that you have, you can apply in both your social life when it comes to drawing and dealing with sort of your emotions and your ideas and your dreams, but also in your professional life, because you can apply this very abstract way of expressing yourself, not necessarily through words, but through some other mean. And you can apply the structure of drawing, because there's some structure to it now, isn't it? When you draw, very rarely someone just starts drawing in one spot and draw out from that. In my experience, people draw a bit all over the place and then try to connect everything. And that sort of mindset can help you look at tasks instead of just in isolation, in sort of a synchronicity, right? So it's one way that you can work with it. But anyway, the basic idea is that you can apply the way that you're channeling your imagination and creativity to your workplace. Now, there are different scenarios that we can take from this. Either we can say that you have 100% creativity in your social life, but only 80, 50, whatever you want to say. It's just a number, right? But not 100% at work. Now, you can set a goal in your life based on this, so that you want to, at that time, have taken certain steps in order for you to transfer the amount of creativity you feel that you have in your social life over to your work life as well. Truly attain not just an emotional balance, but a creative balance as well. And if you do have that, one can argue that they will take inspiration from each other and snowball, and both will be kept to close to 100% at all times. And if they are utilized to the fullest of their potential in both sides, both work and social, yet again they will probably snowball on off each other and grow the amount of creativity that you can produce, that you can use, and that you can have to your disposal, right? Just my opinion. Now, I need to add just like a caveat in the end. The second point of view is, let's say that you can't really attain 100% of your creativity. Let's say that you are at 50%. You might be at 20%. You might even be as low as 5%, but you can also be at 95%. The entire point is that neither in your social nor your work life you are at 100%. Now, a way you can do this is that, or a way to reach that is yet again do the same thing. You can set a goal and you can meet steps along the way, try to explore your creativity and get to 100%. That's also a way you can do it. But now, let's say that you are at 100%, but you do want to push it, right? You want to push the amount of creativity that you do have. Now, there are a few ways of doing that, and this is why I'm talking about setting new goals in life. Some people need a source of inspiration in order to increase their imagination, their creativity, because they need to extend their reach. They need to breach the barriers that they have surrounding them, so to say, their natural barriers. They need to increase the pool of knowledge. They need to increase the pool of inspiration that they can take from. Now, there are different ways you can do that. If you look at your personal life and your work life and all of that, you can say that just meet a person. And I'm talking about everything from a new lover, someone that you will grow up and marry, or if you have one of those already, or more, you shouldn't judge, right? No matter the sex, you can get a friend. I'm not talking friends with benefits, not what I'm trying to imply here, not trying to imply unfaithfulness. No, what I just mean is that sometimes, most times I would argue, a friend, no matter really who it is going to be a huge source of inspiration for you. And I don't mean necessarily, right, that you should put a goal to say, in 10 years I'm going to have 1 million new friends, because that's going to increase my pool. Now, not necessarily, even though it wouldn't be wrong, it would probably just be unrealistic. No, in order to attain the balance and keep your balance, you need to continue thinking about a balance and what is actually attainable once you try to maintain the balance between work and your social life, and in your social life and in your work individually as you have right now, or increase them in a similar way all the time so that the balance is kept. That is why you should make attainable goals. I think I've been talking about this in the video before, so I will probably just, mention that, reference that. So instead you might be saying, oh, I want to meet that special someone in like 10 years, 15 years, whatever. And you can work with sidestep and side goals up until that point and try to reach that point in that time. Or probably before that time, or later. You can attain the goal. You can change the goalposts, let's say. It's up to you. It's in your hands, right? Or you can say that, well, in the upcoming 10 years, I want to make 10 new really good friends. Or I want to meet 100 new faces, or something along those lines. Which is really attainable, especially if you compare it to the million I said before. No, but it's really attainable for you to make 10 new good friends and to meet and fully explore, or maybe not fully explore, because that probably will take a lifetime and more than that, one can argue. But get an idea of how another person works, how another person is viewing the world, why they're viewing the world in the way that they do. Introducing the new friend to your old friends, introducing all of your new friends together and make a new sort of social group. The experience that you will get from that will probably be a really big source of inspiration for you. And obviously, we shouldn't shun the biggest, probably the biggest source of inspiration in this world. And that is probably having a kid or adopt a kid, right? Making a family, creating a family, and growing off of the experience of that, being a parent, basically. Because haven't you ever heard about these people? I don't know, artists, it can be singers, it can be painters, yada yada yada, whatever, who have said that, well, the inspiration to this song, the inspiration to this sculpture, the inspiration to this painting actually came from my son, my daughter, their friends, my family overall. Well, I've had 100 times, 100-fold times, more than that. It seems to always be that. And why is that? Well, it is probably because a family is such a rich, what you say, a rich place of experience, interactions, and love and hate, for that matter, to some degree, but more love than hate, hopefully. And anger, and happiness, and sadness, and support, and all of these emotions, really, and they're in sort of a confined space with what is probably most important, a really strong bond. Obviously, I can't speak for having a child because I don't have one. Probably can't speak for making a family of my own because I don't have that special someone in my life right now. However, I can say that just by growing up and being part of a family, that I still am, and probably will be for all of my life, that was, and probably will be a huge source of inspiration for me. So I can just imagine, probably can't imagine really, but you can just imagine that having a child of your own and having, or adapting for that matter, and having that child as your own, or having a family overall, in any way, shape or form you want to have it, is probably going to be like the biggest source of inspiration for you. And that source of inspiration you can use to bolster your imagination, because it will breach your barriers, so to say, yet again, breach the horizon of where you can look and start looking in new perspective in new ways, which will increase the amount of imagination you have, bringing in new perspectives that you can use, and that will inform probably being able to be translated into creativity that you can actually express, and that can probably benefit you both in your social life and in your work life, especially if you've kept a balance all throughout, so that this new amount of inspiration and imagination can just be absorbed into you and not offset the balance, because that's why I'm saying it needs to be sort of balanced before when you go into it. Otherwise, it will probably be a lot of unnecessary stress brought with it. It probably will be anyway, because it's probably going to be stressful doing all of these things, getting new friends, or getting someone that special, someone in your life, or getting forming a family. All of these things will probably be stressful. That's yet again why it's important to have the balance. But that will increase the creativity that you have, the imagination, the amounts of ways that you can express your impressions, and that will probably just be good goals to have in your life. I don't really know how to end this video, right? But it's sort of hard to talk about what you should and should not do in your life as goals. So don't take these as that these are the only ones. Just that these are some ways that you can work with goals in your life and ideas of where you want to go in order to increase the amount of imagination. That's worthy to mention is probably do a concert of some sort, perform in front of other people, either if it's comedy or if it's instrumental or if it's something else. Write and publish a book, or travel a lot, And yet again, what it probably boils down to is that no matter what you're gonna do, try to set goals in your life that will gain you an experience that you can use and be proud of, probably, right? Most preferably. But an experience, because the experience is probably what is gonna set the spores to grow your imagination and your perspective, for that matter. Now, that was everything for me today, mates. I'm saying everything, there's probably a lot more in there, but for today, have a nice one, mates, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.